Hey everybody, my name is Brittany and I read, not the country accent coming out of nowhere. My camera's on 49%, so it may unfortunately stop recording. But I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Battle of the Labyrinth for the first time. Like the last video, I have notes this time to tell me what I was specifically on about when I was reading the book. What I should have did before I started this video is figured out how to pronounce some of these names. Is it Daedalus? Let's find out.
Daedalus.
Daedalus? 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 Okay, maybe, okay, I'll be saying it so much, he might show up. And he... That was not funny enough for me to start choking. Y'all like my earrings? I'm back in my punk era. You could take the emo, you could take the girl from the emo, can't take the emo out of the girl. And the What's More Punk Than the Public Library shirt. I had ordered this from St. Pleasant's Library in DC. Y'all support libraries. Chapter 1. I put date with Annabeth, question mark. Demon cheerleaders, Mr. Bluff is a teacher, Rachel and Annabeth. Okay. Percy shows up to school, and this is by memory because I just finished this last night, or this morning. Actually, I just finished this book this morning. I was not expecting to read all of it, but like I said, it ate. Like, this book ate. I don't know, it ate a little bit more than the Titan's Curse, but like the Titan's Curse, like, okay, well, it didn't start out slow for me. For instance, like I said, the Titan's Curse did, but once we got to chapters 10, 11, 13, 14, that's when it was eating, like it was eating down. So, okay, date with Annabeth. I put that in a question mark because Sally was talking to Percy about Annabeth and how he felt about her, and he's like, no, we're friends. And she's like, oh, y'all want to go to the movies together alone? But like, they're kids, they're not really thinking much about it, but everybody else can see it, but they can't at this moment, perchance. Percy gets accepted into this new school because Paul Blowfist, Sally's boyfriend, is a teacher there. Either a teacher or a professor, one of the two, and basically begged and pleaded for Percy's cause. And once Percy gets there, of course, the monsters are gonna lock him down and he's getting cornered into a band room. Luckily for him, he sees his good old friend Rachel there, and she's able to see the demons as well, but he's not able to see them, but he's able to feel the vibes, like something's not right. Like, I'm smelling something that smells like a horse, like some equestrian stuff is going on. But these girls are really pretty, and I think they have like this seducing vibe to them that makes it where people are allured into whatever they got going on. But Rachel's like, oh, you don't even want to know what they really look like. I can see them for who they are, XYZ. So they get cornered into whatever happens. An explosion happens in the band room. Everybody's scared. Paul Blowfist is like, what's going on? Percy runs away, and I think he finds Annabeth, and he starts talking to Annabeth about Rachel, I think, because Rachel had written her number in Percy's hand and was saying, I would like if you would call me because I've been seeing all these things my whole life. And I think their relationship with each other made her feel more normal, because he's like, oh yeah, I can see it too, or I'm a half-blood, or all these other things. And so she's finally able to kind of feel seen and not feel crazy. Chapter 2. I wrote Grover and the Cloven Council for Pan. Okay, in this book, Grover has a girlfriend, and I don't know why that shocked me. I was like, wait, Grover has a girl? Like, okay, so because but also I'm just so interested in how they're going to do that, because in the book she was like a tree. Was she a naiad? She was, no, not a naiad, girl, a nymph. She was something, and they were together, and they were saying that she was crying really bad because Grover was going through it, and Grover is really wanting to make a quest to look for Pan, because he's like, I just know he's still out there. I know he's still out there. You see Tyson, and I was so excited when I saw that Tyson came back, I guess coming back from the forges. I was like, okay, Tyson, hey, I'm glad that we're gonna see him again in season 4, which I'm almost positive we're getting a season 4 for Disney, but I'm excited that we will be getting more of Tyson. I was happy to see him. Percy has this dream after after realizing that Annabeth and Clarice have been talking to each other about something, and it seems like everybody at camp knows something that he doesn't, and he's like, they're not really close like that for them to be conversating in this manner. And then I know Annabeth had came over to Percy's table and talked to him for a long while. He goes to sleep, he has a dream, of course, as a demigod does. And in this dream, he sees like Nico in the middle of some forest, I think. And he is trying to summon the dead to make a deal to see his sister again. And this spirit, it could be Minos at this point, I'm not sure, is saying, oh, you can do that, but in order to do that, you need to trade a soul for a soul. So I'm going to need you to basically get somebody from the living world to take her place, and then you can have her back. Something like that. So at this point, the book is leading us to believe that Nico is going to be Percy's op. At this point, everybody, including Percy and me, is thinking, oh, like, okay, he's going to be seeking for Percy. He's going to be searching and seeking for Percy because he believes that Percy is the reason that his sister died. And in this book confirmed to me for sure that Bianca did die, because I was not sure in the Titan's Curse. And I don't know if that's because, I don't know if I started reading at one point and it got on autopilot. I don't know if there was a smidge of hope in my heart or mind that she was alive, but it wasn't clear to me. And I don't know if that was a reading comprehension error or what. But yeah, Bianca's dead. She's dead. And this book solidified that. Okay, chapter 3. I said again, Grover's girlfriend is sad, and she's telling Percy, I need you to talk Grover out of going into the labyrinth to look for Pan, because everybody's at the point like, oh my gosh, all the satyrs, all the ones that got their searcher's license, they've looked in all these different places in the earth, but they never looked in the labyrinth, which is like some secret interwoven in the crevices of the underground parts of the earth, and secret little places where there are portals that not everybody got access to, but it's very tricky. And they describe the labyrinth as something that can also trick demigods into taking different routes and different things, and where a lot of people get lost in there. And as mentioned in a later chapter, Chris was in the labyrinth on behalf of Kronos and Luke's goons, and he came back and he was mad. They were saying like he was mad, not like mad, but like not like mad angry, but mad crazy. So they talk about Quintus being in there, and they weren't sure why Quintus was in the labyrinth, but this was creating an air of distrust where everyone was like, Grover's girlfriend. I don't want to keep calling her Grover's girlfriend, but I don't remember her name. I'm sorry. And for some reason, I didn't write it down. God be with her. I mean, she was sweet. I feel like she's a sweet girl. Didn't write it down, though. Where she talks to Percy on the side. She says, hey, I seen Quintus go in and out. I wasn't really thinking about... I didn't think the labyrinth was important, but yeah, he was up in there. Hope this helps. He's like, yeah, that information does help a lot, thanks. And him and Annabeth, I think they're searching for something, or they start talking, or they start fighting, and there's all like an infiltration of the camp somehow. I'm not sure if it's skeletons, zombies again, but they're like, how did they get into the camp? And they kind of get backed into a corner, and then all of a sudden it's depicted as like Annabeth and Percy, they just fall into darkness. But it's the labyrinth. Like, they found out that there was an opening to the labyrinth within camp, and they also realized because of this, Luke was using it to, you know, break the borders and get in there without having to go around the borders, because there was a place inside the camp where they could sneak in. Hope this makes sense. Chapter 4, I said Annabeth is nominated for a quest, and she breaks the ancient rules of 3. Okay, in my last video, I was saying, oh, I was gagged so bad that there was 5 people on this quest. Like, they always drilled it in our heads that a quest is of 3. And in this book, Chiron, sorry. There's this guy that I knew back in the day. His name was Chiron. And I'm thinking I'm getting it mixed up how to pronounce it with Chiron. Anyway. And Chiron was basically like, oh, these are ancient laws that have been around for forever, for a really long time. I'm not so sure about that. Annabeth was like, I need them all to be here with me. And I'm not sure where her mind was at this point, but I'm getting there, you guys. Because I have a theory at the end of this. But we gotta boop, boop. But she doesn't tell everybody the completeness of the prophecy and what it said, because we know the words are extremely important with the oracle, and it could mean different things, and it's fluid and it can change, but it means what it means at the end of the day. If y'all get it, right? She begs for a quest of 5 and it's accepted, and she takes Percy, Tyson, Grover. Is her, or is it just 4? Who is the other person? Maybe I wrote that down wrong. Anyway, Percy gets a salt whistle from Quintus, and he's like, if you're ever in deep danger, just blow this whistle. My hellhound, Mrs. O'Leary, I think that's her name, will come and get you and help you and all that. But at this point, he don't know if he could trust Quintus, because he has the knowledge in his mind that he was up in the labyrinth, didn't say nothing to nobody, and he knows they need to go on a quest to find Daedalus. I just looked up how to pronounce this. Daedalus, right? Because he was some skilled architect, and there was this story of a hero in the past who was able to navigate their way through the labyrinth successfully and get out with Ariadne's string. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Please don't get on me about this. I'm trying my best. Okay, chapter 5. Nico is summoning the dead again with Happy Meals, trying to find his sister. So he has like 5-6 boxes of Happy Meals. Like, I know that cost a pretty penny. Where did you get the money for this? Isn't he like 8 years old? I digress. I'm not sure. I just know he was young. In the last book, and he's still young, but he grew up. Percy was describing seeing him looking a little bit older, a little bit taller, his hair a little bit shaggier and dark, and just his whole vibe was just giving, oh, Percy, I'm coming for you and your bones when I see you. That's what we're thinking at this point, right? And he's pouring out these drinks, and, you know, the dead is rising, and he's like, I want to see my sister. I'm sorry, I'm making him sound like he's some, like, I'm making him sound worse than what he is, but like, he's a kid, he's grieving, okay? So that's what's going on. He's like, I want to see my sister. I don't care what none of y'all gotta say. I got power over y'all, whatever. Chapter 5, we also realize that Kronos is needing a new form. He's talking to Luke, and he's like, I need you power. He's like, I gave you power, and I need you and your loyalty and this, that, and the third. It's kind of insinuating that Kronos is wanting to use Luke's body, but it wasn't confirmed until later. And so figuring out that they prepared Luke's body for Kronos to kind of possess him and like override Luke's spirit, I'm not surprised, but also that was very interesting to me, because also at the same time, even though that was a thought in my mind, I was thinking, oh, they're also wanting to find oh my gosh, that man, Daedalus. Y'all, I just looked it up. Okay. Daedalus. Okay, yeah, that's the thing. Daedalus. They're just trying to find him because he had created all these different forms that are kind of like animatronic-y, but also fleshy. This is the best way I can explain it. Which could be a new form for Kronos. So that's why they're thinking they're wanting to get into the labyrinth, by my memory. Chapter 6. So Annabeth, Grover, Tyson, and Percy, they all make it to the labyrinth, and the rooms are shifting as they're walking around, and it's just giving that it's one of those things where it's I won't say up for interpretation, but it changes based on who's in there. And they're facing all these different doors and whatnot, and they have faced this minor god they called, I don't know if it's Janus or Janus, but the god of choices, endings, beginnings, whatever. And it's basically telling Annabeth, you gotta make a choice. You gotta make a choice. Woo. And then Hera steps in and she's like, stop it, Janus. I will not have this from you. I'm a goddess and I can grant any wish that you want. I cannot interfere directly, but I can grant you a wish that can help you very, 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 very much on this journey. And I'm just doing it out of the kindness of my heart. She's on that type of timing, right? And so, what? Did Annabeth wish to know? I think she wished to know how to get through the maze or something. And she's like, Percy has the answer. I'm out of here.
Mind you, Percy has no idea what this lady is talking about. And she's saying he knows the answer. And he's telling Annabeth, I don't really know what I know.
Chapter 7. The crew gets chased by a monster who's a hybrid of almost everything ancient, whatever. That's what I put, because they were saying, oh, it got like the hooves of a this and this type of snake and this type of wolf and this type of beast and bear. Like, just name it. Anything you could think of. Any animal you could think of. That was that monster for real. And there was like, it was something ancient. I'd never seen this before. We barely even know how to pronounce his name. It wasn't necessarily relevant to me to write down the name. But just know it was a nasty, foul, stinky monster. Okay? They find Briares. Let me look it up. Because I'll put some respect on his name, okay? Pronunciation. Briareus. Why am I... Sorry. Why am I enunciating? Well, that's what you're supposed to do when you talk. But I mean, enunciating...
Briareus.
Why does it feel like I'm about to start meditating and levitating? Briareus. I'm gonna put some respect on his name. At first, like, I understand. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, I was feeling bad because he has been in bondage for so long. When help came, he didn't believe it, and then he did for a little bit, but he didn't feel like he was worthy of it, and he just gave up on himself low-key. But Tyson came through, and AT8 the pep talk, and he came around. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna put some respect on this name and I'll actually say it, because it means something to me. Girl, it's raining outside. Anyway, but they find a 100-handed one, and he's scared to escape. He's scared to take the risk. And they explain like the 100-handed one, the specific one that was in the cage that they found. Like I said, he was in bondage to some entity, and they were saying how they existed around the time of the Titans, and they were really strong and would build these fortitudes and cities and all these things and be like really smart and all that. So when Tyson had seen Briareus, y'all know I'm trying. When Tyson had seen him, he was like, I'm your biggest fan. I need your autograph, and please, 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 we love you. That's all I gotta say. And so, like I said, I was feeling bad for him because it's like that, not meme. It got to the point where he was just like, if I get caught again, they're going to torture me really bad, and I don't want that. But it was like, oh, please, just have the trust and hope for freedom. It reminded me, low-key, I do not want to compare this to slavery at all. This is not the time or place. But it reminded me of that quote that comes up a lot during Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. That was last month. But we're continuing it over into March. Melanin March, okay? Spread the word. But it's kind of like, for instance, Harriet Tubman, which, oh my gosh, they mentioned Harriet Tubman in this book, and I cried because they were saying like, oh, she was a child of was it? She was a child of somebody, like she was a haploid. And I kind of liked that because it was like, if y'all know the Harriet Tubman lore, like she was having visions and stuff that was leading her, like God himself was speaking to her. And I hear her story and I get so emotional because she saved a lot of people.
Hey y'all, so I'm editing right now, and I just looked up the quote that I thought Harriet Tubman had said to put it in the video to show y'all. But tell me why several sources was like, hey, she actually never said all that. That's a misconception. I'm not trying to spread misinformation, but I'm still going to put what I said in the video after this disclaimer, just so y'all know where my head was at reading the book.
But she had said something. She was like, I would have saved a lot more. I would have saved a lot more people if only they had known they were slaves. So it's like, there's only so much you can do. And I hope y'all are understanding what I'm saying, because my thoughts are all over the place right now. Boom, chapter 8. We show up at this portal from the Labyrinth, and we show up through this portal at the end of a part or portion of the Labyrinth, and there's we're in Texas now, and there's this ranch, redneck, and exotic animals, and they're saying there's horse-eating animals, horses that eat human beings, and demigods, and this and that and the third. And they're like, oh, I smell demigod, yummy, 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 like dinner time. And Nico is there, and Nico, he's still holding a grudge at Percy at this point. And Percy finds out that Nico actually isn't trying to kill him. Like, he's like, why would I want you in my soul for soul agreement for my sister? Like, I wasn't even thinking about you. Like, he was not a thought on my mind. And so Percy probably breathed a sigh of relief, because low-key, when Nico was stepping into his bag at the end of this book, I was like, oh, it's giving he's more powerful than Percy. Like, oh, it's giving like Thalia and her little thunder powers, and Percy and his water powers, and then we got Nico over here, and he's like working with the underworld stuff. Like, I feel like that's just a little bit stronger and scarier, in my opinion. But somehow they all get in a pickle, and he's trying to save his friends for the 50th time, and it will not be the last. And he makes a deal to scoop poop, and these poop has been in here for a millennia, and they haven't been, the stables haven't been cleaned in years and years and years. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but these are human-eating horses, by the way. And we also figured out that somebody paid off the ranch man, who was also a half-blood, to essentially let them through that passageway, if that makes sense. And Percy, he's like thinking, strategizing, how do I scoop thousands of pounds of poop in a day, or however long he gets. It's some crazy amount of time. And he thinks about the story of Hercules. He's like, Hercules did it, and all he had to do was like get the sea and like put the doo-doo in the sea. And so he was trying to like get into his water power bag, and then a naiad, I'm glad she stood on business. I'm glad she, chapter 9. She stood on business, and she was like, look, there are millions of pounds of waste. Like, that would make all of us sick. That would make the ecosystem sick. That would pollute the waters. It would take years for it to get better. The last time that I allowed this to happen, this is what happened. I will not let you do that. And she was like, it was described like from Percy's point of view that she was shaking and she was scared, because if Percy wasn't empathetic in this way, he could be like, man, I ain't care about all that, what I gotta do with me, and just get all the waters and like clean the doo-doo that way, but then the sea would be polluted. And so he thought about it, and the naiad was like, well, here's a solution. She said it kind of in a riddle-esque way, and essentially Percy had like drew the water in from himself. He had brought in shells from the seashore, and it had water that got summoned from the ground, from the seashore underneath the ground, and somehow that and the seashells, and he was throwing them everywhere, absorbed all the doo-doo into the ground, and it was clean. That was my interpretation from what I read. Absorbed all the manure. Chapter 10, I put Sphinx trivia questions instead of riddles. So the Sphinx shows up in the labyrinth, and Annabeth is sick and tired of this Sphinx's mess, because she hears about all the stories like, oh, you're supposed to tell me a riddle, and you're just asking me like US history questions. You're asking me is one, like, what's 1 + 1? She's like 2. She's like, this is an insult to my intelligence. At this point, I'm like, Annabeth, girl, take what you can get. I understand you probably know more you want to think, but at this point where we're at, look, we're getting a day off. If she want to ask me how many colors are in the rainbow, let's do it. If she want to ask me what color is the sky, what's 1 + 3, what's 15 × 4, like we can arrange something. I was low-key, I was answering them questions when I was reading them too, and I was getting them right. The only one I didn't know was like the capital of something. Chapter 11. So they make a deal with Hephaestus, I think, and Hephaestus is talking about Hera and how he doesn't really rock with her at all, because he was kind of outcasted for being weird, and she only wants a perfect family, and so he kind of isolated himself in that way to, like, as a protection mechanism, and he doesn't associate with Hera, and he was saying you can't trust her because she only wants a perfect family, XYZ, XYZ. But he was like, I will give you the hint to find wherever Dad, oh my gosh, that man, D, we're just gonna call him D for now. find where D is if you can help me find out who's breaking into my forges at this mountain somewhere. And so they did, and they find like all these little sea demons called the Telkenes. I think that's how you pronounce them. And Annabeth is talking about the history of the Telkenes and was saying how they were banished at the beginning of time by Zeus because they practiced dark magic, and she can't necessarily tell him what the magic was, but it had to be really bad for them to be cast away. And Percy shows up, and he's kind of low-key fighting some of these, or I don't know, are they? Yeah, he's fighting some of these before he gets there. Annabeth kisses him on the cheek. Now, I don't know if this is just me. Annabeth kissing him here felt so out of place. And I understand they are in game and I'm rooting for them. And there's little moments here and there where I'm like, you know, but this was just not one of those. And I know Percy was thinking about that kiss later in the book because he brought it up a couple of times in his mind. But to me, it felt so random and out of place where it wasn't satisfying. And I know it was probably satisfying to others. For me, it was kind of like, I guess. It just felt strange. I understand, like, I like it from the standpoint of this builds their romantic connection, but it didn't feel like, it just felt misplaced. And I'll leave it there. I don't got to talk all day in circles. Percy gets lit up by fire. And with the water being inside of him, he summons the water somehow. But then in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, the steam, like that could be really bad. He was like, oh my gosh, the steam, that could be really bad. He blacks out, shows up at another island. He's at Calypso's island. I cried reading this. Girl. He finds out that Calypso is Atlas's daughter. And he starts thinking about Zoe. And that was also Atlas's daughter. And he was kind of trying to speak some life into Calypso. And she was like, I have never told anyone this before, but the fates are so cruel, and I have been sent here to be punished because of my dad. He's like, we're not our parents. Like don't worry, baby girl. Like, you can be good all by yourself. And she tells him, a part of my punishment is in sending a man that I fall in love with every single time that cannot stay. And that's a part of my punishment, okay? He's like, me? Like, you fell in love with me? And he starts really thinking about it. He starts really thinking about staying on this island with Calypso and just leaving his whole life behind. And later in the book, he was like, man, I didn't even think about my mom. Like, that's why I was like, Calypso had been really pretty, XYZ, but also how these gods and goddesses and haplets be. They be having these mists and just ways about them that makes you be drawn in for real. Like, he wasn't even thinking about his mama. He was thinking about his friends. He was like, he was ready to risk it all, actually. And I found that to be crazy. I did have a soft spot for how she was explaining everything. She was like, man, and she started, like, man, I had a soft spot for her, how she was explaining everything, because it was like an island of my own solitude type beat. And she fell in love with Percy and told him, and then she started getting sad after she fell in love, because she was like, I know that you're a hero, you have to leave, and I also can't help you. But in my memory, here are some seeds that you can plant in Manhattan. And he does that. And the craziest thing that Percy said is that Calypso would always be his biggest what if. I'm sorry, I didn't like that, okay? I mean, yeah, logically people think like that, but we didn't get enough of her. We didn't get enough of her for him to be talking like this. Mind you, okay, he is a kid. Like, he's 14 years old. He had his 15th birthday in this book. But still, I don't know. If y'all share the same thoughts and opinions as me, please let me know, okay? Chapter 13. So, Clarice, she kind of is feeling Chris. And she is giving her all to heal him, and everybody can see it. Like, she's at his bedside and is doing everything that she can. I think she's doing like the whole Nectar Ambrosia thing. Hey, do you remember who I am? He's just like, Percy Jackson is evil. Like, all these things that have been programmed in his mind by listening to Kronos and Luke. Are we surprised? No. But Clarice likes him, like, you can tell. Eventually, Percy, he thinks about it, and he's like, oh, I know how we can get through the labyrinth. Hephaestus tells Percy the secret code. He was like, look, y'all are thinking about this string, but it wasn't like the string, yes, technically can get you around, but here's a story even better. He got around, whoever they were referencing in this story, he said, had a princess in there with him. And the princess wasn't nobody special. She wasn't a god. She wasn't a goddess. She wasn't even a half-blood. She was a mortal human woman who had clear vision, who was a Sally, who was a Rachel Dare. Somebody who could see through the mist real good. And so Percy was like, I know somebody like that. This may sound crazy, but we need her. And Elf was like, excuse me? Excuse me? Like, that's dangerous. But then everybody starts wheeling it back in. Okay, like, we'll see. Rachel and Annabeth meet each other. Annabeth is giving her a hard time, but I was giggling at first, but then I was like, okay, Annabeth, you're doing a little bit too much. Because Rachel was such a real one. Like, coming into this book, I had a preconceived notion of who Rachel was based off of my previous feelings on knowing that Rachel is a love interest for Percy, and I think by getting spoilered that they shared a kiss, and I was like, oh, the end game though. But like, Rachel was a real one throughout this book, and so I was like, I can't dislike her even if Annabeth is being away, but also she's also a kid and she likes Percy, okay? And I'm about to get into that conspiracy theory at the end too. Boom. We get into chapter 14. Rachel's like, I can see the way, like, it's clear to me, I don't know how to explain it, but boom, 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 and they're getting through that thing, bow, bow, bow. But it leads them to this fight club situation, and Luke is there, and essentially Percy is having to fight his brother, which is like some ancient, I don't know if this is like a god, or I didn't write his name down, I didn't care enough, or a half-blood, and he's like, oh, I'm actually Poseidon's favorite son, I did all these bad things in his name, and Percy's like, how dare you? But then Annabeth's like, his mother is Gaia. So, okay, I guess he's a god, because Gaia is also, okay. And so Percy, it clicks in his mind like, oh, the ground is keeping him alive just like the water keeps me alive, so I got to get him above ground. And so he does, and Percy, you know, does what he has to do. Boom, that entity is killed, and they made a deal, and Percy was saying again, let my friends go, let my friends go. And this time he made the other guy swear on the river Styx. He learned from his last mistake, technically. When he made the deal the last time, the guy was like, yeah, sure, I'll make a deal with you. And then tried to go back on his word and say, well, we didn't actually swear on the binding agreement of the river Styx, so whatever. And yeah, y'all get it. At this point, Percy is like, I don't know if I could trust this whistle in my pocket, but it's getting colder and colder, and if there's any time to blow it, it's now. He blows that whistle. Blow the whistle. Blow the whistle. Like, I don't know why when I read that in the book, that song started playing in my head for real. And so I was like, hey, get into it. And Mrs. O'Leary comes through, guns ablazing. She ripping everybody apart. Percy and friends are running real fast, and he realizes that, oh man, we low-key lost Mrs. O'Leary. I feel bad because I didn't even bother to check if she was following us. Mind you, wasn't she explained to be like literally like bigger than the apartment building they was living in? I feel like, well, I don't know, maybe they were just such panic that they didn't realize. Chapter 15, we find out that Daedalus, I'm gonna just say it however, y'all just gotta deal with it, is actually Quintus. I was a little gagged, I won't lie. I wasn't surprised, but I was like, oh, okay, I like that. And we find out that Quintus is just one of his little forms that he created, and they're like, how? But you're in front of us and you look like us. And he just starts peeling his skin back, and you're seeing like metal and all these different things, and he's like, Quintus actually means 5 and something. He's like, this is my 5th form. And so all the dreams Percy was having about, you know, Icarus and all that, and these family dynamics being strange, like, yeah, Daedalus / Quintus killed his family, or not family, his son or nephew, somebody. And also went back on his word, kind of. He was like, oh, y'all found me, and I'm glad that y'all found me. Well, he didn't go back on his word, but essentially he was like, y'all found me, congratulations, but also I had already gave the string away to Luke. And they're like, why would you do that? He's like, actually, like, Kronos had made me a deal that was too good to pass up, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was annoyed at him for that, because he sold out his peepo. And he realized that this was a mistake, because guess what? Kronos obviously didn't keep his word. Luke obviously didn't keep his word. They just wanted to use you, and you fell into their trap, okay? But, like I said, they didn't honor it. They were like, dang, like, what are we going to do now? The ops show up into Daedalus's workshop, and they're fighting, and then Rachel, she finds his wings on the wall, and she equips everybody with wings, including Nico, because Nico is also here with us as well. Chapter 16. Okay, we find out that at one point of the book, there's this haplet that they were talking about. Oh, we need his allegiance, we need his allegiance. We're thinking it's Nico, or at least Percy thinks it's Nico, and it's some random name, Ethan. And it was not moving me. I understand they had to throw him in there so there was no one we were attached to, but it just wasn't moving me at all. I was like, next crawler, next crawler. And Percy was trying to help Ethan because they had to fight to the death, but he ended up not doing that. Ethan was like, you don't have to help me. I don't want you to help me. Like, I'm the son of Nemesis. It's in my blood to betray and backstab and da-da-da, whatever he was saying. It just made me roll my eyes. It's just like, okay, it's kind of cliche. Ethan. But he swears his allegiance to Kronos at this moment, and he gives it all up, and then I guess this life force goes into Kronos' body, and Percy at this point has, I think, the cap of invisibility, and he knocks Kronos' coffin over, and he realizes, whoa, that's Luke's body in there. Luke's body is in the coffin. And we're all like, I got this part spoilered for me, so it didn't shock me as much because I knew. But like I said, I don't know if there's a redemption arc because how Annabeth is talking. And Kronos was like, Luke feared you, I do not. And he was like, Luke's jealousy and unforgiveness has permitted me to use his body and has been well prepared. Like shaking all the walls and the floors and the doors, and everybody's running and scared to get in. Boom. 17, we find out Pan is dead. I cried. And he's like explaining once like a god can die, or not die, but fade away once everything that they stand for has faded away. And they were explaining how all the infrastructure and this and that has really made it to where it has been difficult for Pan to do what he has to do. And so he created this oasis within the labyrinth because he didn't want anybody to find him, and he wanted Grover to spread the message like, hey, the wild is in all of us, and we have to all take measures to make sure that certain parts of the earth is protected. And he's like, spread the word that Pan is dead, like, you have such a good heart. And he's like telling these like mini prophecies to everybody. He's like, Annabeth, like, you're gonna play a larger role than you think, or not the role that you think, but it's still gonna be important. Tyson, like, your name's gonna go down in history. Like, just giving everybody a pep talk, except for Nico. And mind you, I didn't even clock that until the end of the book, where everybody was kind of like, Nico doesn't belong, like, he's a child of Hades, we don't mess with that. And guess what, like, Pan didn't even address him when he was telling everybody these nice things. I'm like, no, Pan didn't even address him, no. But he was saying, Grover, you are one of the strongest believers in me. I need you to let me go so I can die, essentially. And he was like, it's been very slow and painful because y'all satyrs have so much hope that I'm alive. He's like, I kind of am, but I need to fade away. And so he fades away, boom, boom, boom. It reminded me of Coco in The Final Death. You know, like, once everybody forgets about them in the living world, they fade away. So I wonder where that idea comes from in the idea of mythology and folklore. I'm interested in that. And his spirit goes into all of them, essentially. We get into chapter 18. We find out that Rachel is rich. I kind of figured that out when she was able to just go into this random taxi, not taxi, but like limousine, and was like, I need to go XYZ, and she was acting kind of weird and whatever. We find out that Rachel is rich, and her dad is one of these guys who finds wild lands and tears down all the trees and builds plots and stores and all that on top of it. And she feels bad because she's seen Pan die, and she's thinking like a part of the reason that happened is because of the things that her dad did. And then Percy's like, baby girl, we are not our parents. Like, we're not our parents. Chapter 18. Okay, so there's this long camp battle royale. I'm not really into talking about it that much because it was a whole lot going on. I wasn't able to keep up with my mind. The Daedalus comes back with a fixed body, and he surrenders and he apologizes, and he said he's going to face whatever punishment that he's given, and he's sorry. He wants to let his son know that he's sorry, or his nephew, whoever, and that he's just gonna stop trying to escape death. He gives Annabeth his tablet or computer with all of his architecture and ideas, everything, because Annabeth was like, I don't know who you are. Like when he did what he did earlier under the influence of Kronos, she was like, whoa, like I idolized you. And that's why they say never meet Charles idols, for real. But he kind of had an arc of redemption. He was like, I'm so sorry, like you believed in me and I let you down, XYZ. Percy, he was like, I need someone to watch Mrs. O'Leary, can you do that? And he said yes, because she did not want to go to the underworld again, understandably. Boom, chapter 19. I also cried on chapter 19. Dionysus comes back and his son dies in battle from Kronos's team or whatever, who infiltrated camp a little bit, and they were fighting. And he heals Chris of his madness, and I don't know why this made me so emotional. And he was talking to Percy. He brought him to the side. He was like, you know what? Like when I was a human, I was a nobody. I just made wine. I wasn't strong or particularly influential, but as a god, I could do small things like that. And he said, madness is my specialty. And you would realize how much that made Clarice happy. The fact that he healed Chris of him and his madness. And Percy looked over there at Clarice and Chris, like holding hands. I don't know if they were holding hands, if I'm making this up, but you know, singing camp time songs and smiling and laughing, looking each other in their eyes longingly. Thought you caught me smiling. Yeah, so that was heartwarming. There was a lot of traitors, a lot of deaths, but Annabeth and Percy saved camp again. Chapter 20, which is the last chapter. Percy is recounting which each part of the oracle meant, because he noted in his mind that Annabeth didn't tell everybody what it was, like from start to finish. And he was like, okay, this is what this means. We thought it meant this, but it actually meant this. We met this, we encountered this, blah, 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 blah. What was the last line? And Annabeth was kind of not really wanting to tell him. But let me read out the prophecy from front to end. Clock. Okay. The dead, the traitor, and the lost one raise. You shall rise or fall by the ghost key. Whoa. Okay. You shall delve in the darkness of the endless maze. The dead, the traitor, and the lost one raise. You shall rise or fall by the ghost king's hand, the child of Athena's final stand. Destroy with the hero's final breath, and lose a love too worse than death. Girl, when I had read that, I was like, oh no, Annabeth, baby girl. So Percy was like, oh, Luke, no. But this is I have a theory. Because Annabeth was even like, I didn't know who it was about. And so that means in her heart, she has love for multiple people. That would be like, if I were to lose you, this would hurt really bad. And I'm thinking as well, because I wrote this down, because prophecies, according to the oracle, aren't 100% clear, that she thought, oh, I need everybody to be with me. Stay with me. Okay. Possibly in two different ways. Because, you know, Annabeth and her character, she analyzes everything, every possibility, XYZ. If it were Luke or if it were Percy or Grover or whatnot. But I'm going to talk about Luke and Percy, because Percy was like, oh, like Luke, because she was like, he has to be still there, has to be still alive, because when Rachel hit him with her hairbrush, like, I seen him a little bit, his eyes weren't gold or something she was saying. I'm thinking that she believed if Percy didn't come with her, that he would have fell for Rachel and she would have lost him that way, like the opportunity of like falling in love with him, and or like in the way of like losing Percy to another girl essentially, and that would hurt.
I think what I was trying to say as well was that Annabeth knew, okay, prophecies are fluid. I could lose somebody in the quest, or I could lose someone out of the quest. I need Percy to come with me because I want to maximize the time that I have with my best friend, just in case it is him. And I would just hope that it's not him. I would hope that it's not Luke or Grover, but I can't make that choice or decision on who it is. I just want the people I love to be around me. And I know that's even scarier for Annabeth, because let's say she did lose Percy. It would be very hard for her to move forward, having another Thalia-esque situation happening again, losing somebody at the hands of her choice, even though it's not a guarantee that would happen either way. Like that's where they get us on terms of the Oracle.
In my mind, I was like, maybe that's why she was a little like apprehensive towards Rachel, especially in the idea of, hey, let's actually, like, she's a part of the quest now. And she's like, what? She has these abilities to be able to see. And Annabeth was like, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. And guess what? It was though. Like, it was though.
I think Rachel being around was very challenging for Annabeth, because they were similar in the sense of they admired the arts and architecture, but Rachel had this gift that was greater than logic, so it was hard for Annabeth to understand how she could be right in these circumstances when Annabeth does all of her computing with her mind, or most of her computing with her mind. And I think that kind of established a grudge, because Rachel was correct for as leading them in directions, and Annabeth had to accept the fact that they did need her in this quest to get to where they needed to go. But because Rachel was a part of the reason why the quest was successful, she attributes that to losing somebody that she loves. And so that's like her holding something else against her that's not really, her fault.
She's like, it just doesn't make sense. And I was like, Annabeth, baby girl, like, I get it. Bring it back. Reel it back in. I get it. And it's just like Percy being one of her bestest friends. When people be getting into relationships, they don't care about nothing else. So I was like, that's one theory. And then the second theory is like, obviously losing Luke. Another reason why she would be apprehensive towards Rachel, because she was basically at one point like, this is your fault to her because you led us through this way, and maybe if we didn't go this way or that way, then Luke would have been okay. But Luke had already made his mind up. I think she's just going through the process of grieving, because that is a loss. Like, that's Luke, but Kronos has his flesh suit. Words that I never thought that I would say in my life before. But I would say that would indicate that she loved him, because that's who she lost. That, like, she loved him. Like, she loved him. She loved him. And so I was like, oh. So it's Percy's birthday, and Paul Blowfus asks for Sally's hand in marriage through Percy in a man-to-man way. I want your blessing to marry your mother. And he's like, you know what? I rock with you, Mr. Blowfish. I am okay with that, actually. Thank you for asking me. And then randomly, like in 90s sitcom fashion, Percy's real father, Poseidon, shows up at the door. Hey, Percy, happy birthday. And Paul's like, who is this man coming into my girlfriend's house? And he's looking at Percy, and he's looking back at Percy, and he looked at you, and he looked at me, and like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to read their body language. And Sally's like, oh, that's Percy's dad. But she's low-key weak at the knees still, because nobody's expecting Poseidon to show up like this, because he has rarely showed up. I hope this helps. And he pulls Percy to the side. Hey, I gotta talk to you to the side. My name's Poseidon. And Paul's like, oh, like the god? He's like, yeah, like the god. And everybody is giggling and cackling, and they're all in on the joke. Paul is not. He talks to Percy. Percy unloads everything. He tells him about the journey that they went on the labyrinth, all that, yada, 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 yada. And then Poseidon tells Percy that he's his favorite son. And I don't know if I believe that. Not to say that Percy isn't great. Like, I feel like being a god and watching Percy on his little adventures with his friends would be a very fun job. Like, okay, that's my little demigod. But I don't know. Maybe he, like, I think it's cute, but also I'm not sure if this is because of the propaganda given, like, oh, okay, he just turned 15, his birthday is next year, we want to be on the right side of the war, and Kronos is coming back, or is back, and the gods know. And guess what? The demigods tried to warn y'all about this 2 years ago, but y'all didn't want. Oh my gosh, I'm getting a phone call. And I don't know if Poseidon means it, or if he just is buttering Percy up because he wants the prophecy to be about him low-key, so he has more sway. And also Nico, like I said, he shows up, he's a real one. Rise or fall by a ghost king's hand, and he saved them. But imagine though if he didn't. Oh my gosh, I would throw up. Because that goes back again to the choices, the human side of them. What if Nico was just like, I'm gonna just let them die? Excuse me. And we find out that Chiron knows about Nico, and the fact that Percy and all them hid the fact that he was Hades' son. I don't got time to get into it because I was hearing things about Chiron to not know. Nico comes over and Percy gives him a slice of blue cake, and Percy is like, I don't know if this boy has ever had cake before. He invites him in, and then Nico is like, look, I have a plan in my mind on how to defeat Luke. And then the book concludes. I understand cliffhangers. I did not like that one because, look, when I was reading it last night, I had about this much pages left, and I ended up finishing the whole book. I had like, maybe like, if I had to guess, like this many pages left, or like this many pages left. I finished the whole book. And sometimes I like to go in the back. You know how sometimes in books like this they'll have samples of the next book and stuff? I like to section it off so I know how much real book that I have. Oh, did I forget to talk about the Council of Cloven Elders and how they were trying to call Grover a liar? And then basically Dionysus and everybody was like, y'all hear how Grover did that battle cry that was very scary, but that made everybody retreat? That was an op. He was like, yeah, Pan did that in the battle of D on this day. And so yeah, I believe that his spirit went into Grover and everybody else, and God's vote is 2-1, and so they just dropped the matter because they didn't want to believe that Pan sent that message back, but he did for real. And there was a lot of people giving their testimonies on the matter, and y'all just have to deal with it. It was sad, but we dealt with it, okay? Did I finish my sentence? I don't know if I did. I'm not sure. Oh, elaborating on my point when I was talking about Rachel and Annabeth and Luke, navigating them through the labors that could have caused it, because she wouldn't be 100% sure or not. I just wanted to elaborate that one little point. But anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sitting here with me. I will be reading the last book, which I think is the last Olympian. in the box set that I have, and I will be making a video on it and talking about it. If there's anything that y'all want to know my opinions on about this book, leave it down in the comments and I'll get back to y'all. Any comments, questions, concerns, XYZ, etc. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Bye.